Peace be upon you. The Iraq satellite television presents the newscast, and we start with the headlines. Mr. Taha Yassin Ramadan confirmed that the number of volunteers from the Arab countries reached 6,000. The Information Minister, Iraq will chase the attackers of Americans and British because they are targeting the Iraqi civilians. Our tribesmen and our fighters of the armed forces destroys an attempt by the British to parachutes in Al-Ba'aj area. To the details. Mr. Taha Yassin Ramadan, the Vice President, that the number of Arab volunteers reach more than 6,000 volunteers. Among them, suicide volunteers. In his press conference, he said that the attack against Iraq uncovered the attempts and the intentions of the invaders, and everything now is clear in front of the world and the Arab countries. Until now, the talk is still continuing in the media channels and sometimes from the official sources. They are still talking about and repeat what the enemy, whether military people or non-military people, Americans and British, regarding the subject of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, that Iraq is using weapons of mass destruction, and they engage a large number of countries into talking about this subject in order to explain and use it as a pretext for the return of the inspectors, and after that to attack Iraq in their dirty attack, savage attack. We are still listening. Every day we hear that they obtained some information and that there is a possibility that they might find something like that, weapons of mass destruction. And they explain how they found some. That would explain why they find some of the protective gear, like the mask against chemical weapons, inside the military installations. And all this talk have no relation and any connection with the subject of weapons of mass destruction. And we hear from some countries, even if it's very few countries, that we have a diplomatic relation with. And they come to us, said Iraqis, if you have weapons of mass destruction, don't use it. It will hurt you.
They have been informing our diplomats that if Iraq has any WMDs, then Iraq should...
And I say to them, I say to those people and the other people, all of you, you know very well that Iraq is clear of any weapons of mass destruction. And shame on you, all of you, but first on those invaders, to repeat these cheap lies. Which became an excuse, a pretext to you and people like you to explain and to justify the savage attack against Iraq. But I would like to say And I would like to explain why they are repeating such talk.
That this thing is being repeated.
And to the extent that some of the fair-minded and nice people are also repeating the same premises and repeating these talks about the presence or the possibility of presence of weapons of mass destruction is working and playing to the intention of the invaders. And by doing such, they will encourage those people to claim that they found already something. And they can bring it with them, these prohibited materials, and plant it here and claim that they find it here. And they said, here it is, weapons of mass destruction. We found it in this area or that area or this room or this installation. And and we are warning of such scenario. And we give these invading countries, we hold them responsible to the results of this irresponsible behavior.
We want the countries that are not yet part of the aggression to become party to the propagation of such acts.
And this is a manner which is not strange to the behavior of the attackers. These are the same people that hit the civilian areas. It is not strange to their behavior to do such things. And the locations of these civilian areas. And it's clear. And then they say that these locations are used by some formation, military Iraqi formations or military units. And when the media people cannot find these units, then they say that it is the Iraqi people who are hitting these civilian areas.
That those areas are not being used by any military unit, then they come back and say, we did not hit those areas, it is Iraqi artillery.
And when they are surrounded with questions, repeating the questions, then at the end, when they are cornered, they say, okay, we will run an investigation. And this is this level of behavior is not alien for them to do something like that in regards of the weapons of mass destruction. Mr. Mohammed Saeed Sahaf, the Minister of Information, confirming that the American and British forces are targeting Iraqi civilians because those people are racists. And he said these are crimes against humanity and Iraq will chase them because of that. He also added that the health ministry is working day and night to provide the best services to the civilians in all the provinces of Iraq despite the attack. In Al-Basra city last night there was fierce battle in Abi al-Khasib with the British forces or against the British forces by the Iraqi army, not only the Iraqi army but also the Fidai Saddam and some of the Al-Ba'ath party fighters also. They inflicted heavy casualties against the troops there, and some of the corps of the enemy are still there until now. A column of the American troops in Al-Zubair city, confronted by Iraqi fighters against that columns, and it was moving toward Basra, and it was confronted by Iraqi fighters of the Iraqi tribes fighters, some of the units of the Iraqi army, and they inflicted very heavy casualties and damages against this column, forcing them to stop and to withdraw. There is a district in the outskirts of Al-Basra called Talha, the district of Talha. Also, an American column approached that district and was confronted by the mechanized Iraqi unit, and a battle took place there. And then the American columns withdraw also from Al-Talha. The Iraqi side shot down one Apache helicopter. In general, in Al-Basra sector, the situation is still the same between the Iraqi troops. They are still in control in all the places in town. Same like the last 12 days. Nothing changed. As for the Americans and British, they are nailed outside the town, and they could not move or proceed. And we are attacking everywhere, here and there, and inflicting heavy damages on them. In Al-Nasiriyah, also, a fierce battle is taking place, and is still continuing until now. And they have approached the city again, and also there are fierce battles still continuing until this moment. In Al-Najaf, last night, they tried also to attack the southern outskirts of the city, and they were also confronted with fierce fight. And still in South Najaf, they destroyed 7 personnel, armored personnel fighters. Fidai Saddam also participated in this battle, and they destroyed 7 personnel, armored personnel carriers. And because of the fierce battle in South Al-Najaf, they also withdrew again to an area called Bahr al-Najaf in the desert, 30 kilometers away from the city. 30 kilometers away from the city. In the north, Al Jazeera channel showed some of coverage and films. There was an attempt to drop the American to drop their forces in a base near Mosul city called Al-Ba'aj. In Al-Ba'aj, the American and British forces, that they jumped there. Only few of them could run away from the Iraqi army and the Fidai Saddam. And they took most of their weapons, their arms, armed cars, armed vehicles, and we will provide you with longer coverage and pictures of this. Dear audience, we have just received the following. In the name of Allah, kind and most merciful, the President, the leader, the Mujahid, Saddam Hussein, gave a message to the great Iraqi people, and will be read by Mr. Muhammad Saeed Al-Sahaf, the Information Minister. In the name of Allah, kind and most merciful, their groups will be defeated and will run away. Allah is always truthful. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. There is no Allah, God but Allah. O you Mujahideen people, the children of our great nation, men who are carrying with their weapons the honor of resistance, peace be upon you. When you are facing the enemies of Allah and humanity, the infidels, with your hearts that is full of faith and love of Allah. Yes, these are the days that there is no more honorable days than those. For the last 700 years, Allah gave us a gift, this opportunity. He gave us also a difficult test to test our faith and our allegiance to Him. Allah is testing us to see if we're going to apply our words by action, to raise our honor and raise the name of Allah on the banner of Allahu Akbar. Yes, brothers, for ages and ages, the scholars and the imams, religious imams of this nation have never agreed on one thing as they agreed now, that this attack that is carried by the infidel on the citadel of faith is an attack against religion, money, resources and souls, against the house of Islam. Therefore, jihad becomes a duty on every Muslim. Whoever will die will go to paradise forever, enjoy it forever, and enjoy the blessing of Allah on them there. Take this advantage, brothers. You will have one of two great things, either victory or martyrdom by Allah, if you keep your faith and your promises and your pledges to Allah and used it now at the right moment, and be patient as God called us to be. Allah will grant them a victory against their enemies, and those aggressors will run cursed. They and their devils will be cursed, while your faces will be lighted by honor. Use it. Use this opportunity, my fathers and mothers, my children in Iraq. It is the opportunity to have an everlasting life. And greatness that is nothing like it. Beat them, kill them, fight them. They are the evil aggressors, cursed by Allah the Great. You are victorious, they are defeated. Fight them as your brothers and your children did in al-Qasr wal-Basra and Nainawa wal-Hadba wal-Nasiriyya and in Al-Hay and Al-Anbar. Fight them everywhere as you fight them today. Do not give them any opportunity to rest until they declare it and they withdraw from the land and the house of Islam, cursed here and in heaven. Live our great nation. Live Palestine, free Arab, from the river to the sea. Live Iraq. Live Iraq. Oh, for jihad. Live the mujahideen of our nation. Allahu Akbar, let them lose. Saddam Hussein in the 29th of Muharram, 1424 Hijrah, 1st of April 2003. Dear audience, we continue the news from the Iraq satellite television from Baghdad. A spokesman for the Foreign Ministry stated that the Egyptian authority took a decision to expel the first secretary in the Iraqi embassy in Egypt. They gave him only 7 days to leave without giving any reasons to this regrettable action. The first secretary was exposed to different attempts by one of the American intelligence officers in Cairo. They tried to push him or force him to betray his country as part of a large campaign by the American intelligence against the Iraqi diplomats all over the world. Mr. Al-Ani answered the spy, and he hit the American spy with his shoes. And the evil administration in Washington took these desperate measures, which was rejected by most of the governments in the world who respected their sovereignty. They asked 60 countries to expel the Iraqi diplomats, especially those who rejected to cooperate with the American intelligence. And they expressed their disgust at these attempts by the American intelligence. And they stood there defending their nationality. The tribesmen and Fidai of Saddam attacked all the positions of the enemies of Americans and British. These battles surprised the enemy and turned their balance upside down and their plans. And because of the great resistance of our people and in kicking them out of the land of Arabs and Muslims, a group of our fighters and tribesmen aborted an attempt by the British to land in Al-Ba'aj area. And the reporter of Al Jazeera in Ninawa area said that the fighters took over 20 battles and light armored vehicles and number of the enemy personnel, and they killed 10 British soldiers and injured so many others, destroyed 14 vehicles and confiscated large number of weapons and ammunition, and they found 3 vehicles that could be used again. They had celebrated the victory, and the reporter of Al Jazeera said that the citizen, despite the invasion, celebrated the victory against the occupying powers, and they showed how they were able to destroy the armored vehicles of the enemy in the northern of Iraq. They also added that the Iraqi citizens walked in the streets of Al-Ba'aj city using one of the British vehicles that they confiscated, and they showed the spoils of wars such as weapons and the light automatic weapons and the hand grenades that was left by the British soldiers in the land of the battle after they were defeated on the heroes of Iraq. Al Jazeera reporter also added that there were several helicopters came to the area to evacuate the killed and the injured soldiers. An Iranian citizen carried out a suicide operation against the American, the British embassy in Tehran, Iran. He rammed the gate of the embassy with a car filled with fuel, which led to a great fire. We did not know so far how many casualties in the British embassy, and the operation led to the martyrdom of the person who carried it out. The demonstrators all over the world asked to close the British ambassador from their country in Iran. The citizens in Kirkuk city went out in angry demonstration. Arabs, Turkmen, and Kurds, headed by the religious leaders, and they asked for jihad from the nation of Islam. Allahu Akbar. After that walked the women, and they raised the slogan that the women of Ta'min are behind Saddam Hussein. They carried the pictures of Saddam Hussein, may Allah keep him, and other slogans such as the people of Iraq are defending their country and the city of Kirkuk. The children of Kirkuk confirmed their pledge to the great Mujahid Saddam Hussein defending the nation that will become a grave and incendiary room for the attackers. Several media personality in Morocco demanded that British forces and American forces cease its attack against Iraq, which is not only against Iraq but against the whole Arabic countries. The dean of McNass Law School said that this attacks reflects another of the serious scandals of American and British against Iraq. He also said that when the United States is the only superpower, they are trying to control the world, but their will is broken on the hands of the Iraqi people. The Moroccan artists also declared their support to their brothers in Iraq against Britain and the United States that is destroying the artistic and historical sites in Iraq, the land of civilization, history, and science. The Moroccan unions also condemned this attack, American, British, and Zionist attack against Iraq, and the savage crimes that was committed against civilian markets and civilian areas. From all over the Moroccan country, large number of the citizens came to the Iraqi embassy to show their support to their brothers in Iraq and show their readiness to go and help the Iraqi people against the invaders. The suicide operations caused great horror in the lines of the enemy, so they became more desperate and more vicious in the attacks against the civilians. A political analyst in Al Jazeera said that these attacks against the civilians is foolish, and the reaction of the suicide attacks against them caught them by surprise. The report also said that this fear and horror led to the increase of the vicious actions against the civilians. This report also said that these methods will not break the will of the Iraqi people, who are continuing in their steadfastness against the invaders of the 21st century. The defenders of Al-Nasiriyah city are conducting a huge battle against the Americans. And they confirmed that the city is still in the hands of the Iraqis in its normal condition. American newspapers stated that American policy, despite Bush and Blair's otherwise claims, did not prove that there is any weapons of mass destructions are actually in Iraq, which they used as a pretext to their attack. They said, the paper also said that after 12 days, the failure of proving such accusations led to great harm to Bush policies, because he failed in proving his claims among the American people and committing this foolishness against the Iraqi people. Maxtall, the spokesman of the Defense Ministry, Department of Defense in the U.S., confirmed the same thing when he said, after all this time, we still don't have any evidence that Iraq owned these weapons. An American spokesman admitted that F-3 plane fell because, as he said, technical malfunction when it was getting ready to land on one of the ships. And this is the way the Americans always explain their losses. They always say that it is technical problems. They never admit that it's as a that it happened as a result of the anti-air defense, Iraqi anti-air defense. Even after a large number of planes, they always say that to explain what happens, that it is either technical, but not because of the Iraqis. They always say that either it's an accident, or it turned over, or it fell because of friendly fire. Al-Sabah newspaper in Morocco stated that the developments in the war is a failure in terms of the American media, which worrisome the American administration. They also added on, Bilior Balqadi is the writer of this article, also said that the rumors, the American rumors, was confronted and defeated by the Iraqi disciplined plan. The writer also added that the Iraqi media confirmed the trust between the leadership and the people, and gave only accurate news about the progress of the war, and that the Iraqi people in their defense against the American and the British. Also, the anger of the public opinion in the United States when they discover the cheats and the lies of the Bush administration after the losses in the battle. It seems like the rulers of Kuwait are following their masters, and they are walking in any way they want, not only as agents and to thread the interest of the Arab nations only, but they are now killing the word of truth. Not only that they put all the Kuwaiti media in the service of the occupying powers, but they are also stopped through censorship and destroying the evidence and the facts, and stop the reporters and stop the channels in order to cover up for the losing invasion against Iraq. The National Society in Venezuela, in the parliament, condemned the American-British attack against Iraq. In their resolution yesterday, after approval by the majority, stated that this savage invasion and aggression against Iraq is a savage one, against the will of the international community and the United Nations. Mr. Tariq William Saab, the Vice President of the International Relation in this society, submitted a project for a resolution, and most of the parliament parties and the main governing party approved it and voted for it. The last news, the International Union, Labor Union, declared that the invasion, American-British invasion against Iraq is a challenge to the international laws and the United Nations, and it is a military adventure to control the resources of oil and control the international economy. The International Union sent the Iraqi Labor Union a statement supporting the Iraqi labor unions and asking to boycott the countries that participated in the invasion. and also urged the United Nations, the Security Council, to find a peaceful resolution. The Palestinian Labor Union renewed their support to the Iraqi people also against the American-British invasion. In a message, Mr. Haidar Ibrahim to Mr. Jamil al-Jabouri, the head of the labor union in Iraq, said that the labor workers and of Iraq are writing the greatest chapter in the history of the Arab countries by their steadfastness and resistance to those mercenaries occupying power. And he urged Iraqi people to continue their steadfastness and said that the Palestinian steadfastness and resistance and the Iraqi resistance are happening in the same time to defend the honor of the Arab nation. From the Iraq satellite television, we broadcasted the newscast. See you again, God's willing.